Coming in at number 10, we have Damian Wayne, the son of Batman. Genetically engineered and grown in an artificial womb following a night of passion between Talia al Ghul and Bruce Wayne, Damian was intended by the villain Ra's al Ghul to be his ultimate successor as the ruler of the League of Shadows. Trained to be an assassin from an incredibly young age, Batman wasn't even aware he had a son until the boy was 10 years old and left in his care by Talia. And while initially the father and son combo had some issues sorting out their issues and Damian's stance on Batman's whole no-killing rule, Damian has since become an important member of the Bat family as the fifth Robin and continues to be an essential ally of Batman to this day. Coming in at number 9, we have Shane Johns, the son of Martian Manhunter and Hawkgirl from an alternate future. While attempting to find a way to prevent Lex Luthor from unleashing the Dark Goddess Perpetua, the Justice League found themselves traveling through a six-dimensional doorway to a future where the forces of good had seemingly finally won their constant battle with the forces of evil. All of the members of the Justice League seemed to have found happiness, especially Hawkgirl and Martian Manhunter, who had an ambitious young son named Shane. Unfortunately, this reality turned out to all be a ruse by the World Forger, but in a weird twist, Shane still decided to ally himself with the real Justice League, and used his incredibly strong psychic abilities to help save the day. That'll do, kid. That'll do. Coming in at number 8, we have Cube, Cyborg's son from a dark possible future. Hailing from a world where a force known as the Darkness has threatened to corrupt all of the Earth's heroes, Cube's real name is George Marvin Stone. The son of Cyborg, Cube is literally a human mother box, connected down at the DNA level to one of the most iconic objects in the entire DC universe. Because of this complete integration with alien technology, Cube is able to perform all of the tech-based powers that his father has, alongside being capable of generating his own teleporting boom tubes whenever he wants. With all of those powers combined, Cube is definitely a cyborg you don't want to mess with. Coming in at number 7, we have Zod, the born-in-a-lab spawn of an evil Superman and Wonder Woman from the world of the Justice Lords. Named after one of Superman's most iconic villains, this Zod was born on a world where Superman turned to the dark side and turned the Justice League into the Justice Lords following the death of their universe's Flash. Unfortunately, following the birth of Zod, the baby was kidnapped by a brainiac from another universe and locked away in the Phantom Zone, which is probably the least ideal place possible to raise a child. With both Kryptonian and Amazonian blood flowing through his veins, Zod was beyond dangerous even if he just remained a little kid. Coming in at number 6, we have Nightwing, the adopted son of Batman and the very first Robin. While not biologically a child of the Justice League, Dick Grayson has been by Batman's side since nearly the very beginning, essentially adopted by Bruce Wayne following the death of his circus performer parents, and becoming the very first Robin, the Boy Wonder. Since then, Dick Grayson has accomplished a lot, helping found the Teen Titans, establishing his own superhero identity as Nightwing, and even briefly taking over the position of Batman on a few occasions where Bruce Wayne was incapable of performing the role. No matter what the future of the DC Universe brings, Nightwing will always be an incredible fan favorite. Coming in at number 5, we have Terry McGinnis, aka the next Batman. Originally appearing in the beloved animated series Batman Beyond, Terry was the sarcastic and wisecracking next-generation Batman in a dystopian future Gotham, led by an elderly and retired Bruce Wayne. However, unlike Nightwing, Terry's connection to Bruce wound up being more than just as an adoptive father, as it was eventually revealed that Bruce Wayne is biologically Terry's father, as Terry's actual dad had his genetics replaced by those of Bruce Wayne, essentially making the two heroes related. Even without this connection though, Terry McGinnis stood out as a worthy successor to Batman, developing his own iconic rogues gallery and even being able to defeat villains that the original Batman never could, such as the Joker. Coming in at number 4, we have Hunter Prince, the potential future son of Wonder Woman. In the same dark future that Cyborg's son Cube hailed from, Wonder Woman was one of the first heroes to be infected by the darkness, giving birth to a son that could become an even more powerful vessel for the villain. Wonder Woman gave the boy up to Superman and Lois Lane, hoping that they would be able to prevent her son from going to the dark side, but unfortunately, Hunter believed his mother was giving him up because he was male, as was Amazonian custom. Growing up angry at the previous generation that had failed him, Hunter possessed all of the strengths of Wonder Woman, including her lasso of truth and bracelets of submission, making him a truly powerful and angry enemy. Coming in at number 3, we have 2 for the price of 1 with the Tornado Twins, the potential villainous children of the Flash. Born in the 30th century when Barry Allen had briefly retired there with Iris West, these versions of the twins grew up without a father, as Barry was believed to be dead and never returned to that timeline following the events of Crisis on Infinite Earths. Filling the place of Barry in his absence was unfortunately the Reverse Flash, a villain dead set on ruining Barry's life and creations in any way possible, and turning Barry's twin children into supervillains was right up his evil alley. Having since become members of the Legion of Zoom, a collective of speed-based villains, Dawn and Dawn Allen have the full power of the Speed Force at their disposal, making them incredibly powerful and incredibly dangerous. Coming in at number 2, we have HYPERMAN, a distant future version of the potential son of the Man of Steel. In the same reality where the storyline Kingdom Come took place, the young son of this reality Superman, Jonathan Kent, was kidnapped by the villain known as Gog and encased first in a prison of kryptonite and then trapped within the weird branch of reality known as Hypertime. Luckily, someone was there to watch over the infant, his own future self, a hero known as HYPERMAN that was destined to become even greater than Superman. The baby was eventually able to be saved through the joint efforts of the Kingdom Come universe and the main DC universe's heroes, and the Kingdom Come parents of this child are now determined to make sure that HYPERMAN's bright future becomes a reality. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have Jon Kent, the true son of Superman. Half Kryptonian and half human, Jon Kent was the most recent hero to take up the mantle of Superboy, using everything he'd learned from his parents, Clark Kent and Lois Lane, to be an inspiring force for the people of Earth. Aging quicker than usual due to weird time travel and reality-hopping hijinks, Jon Kent has since become the new Superman, taking over his father's position as the defender of truth, justice, and a better tomorrow, and trying to find his own place in the growing DC Omniverse. And to make things even more interesting, Batman has even theorized after examining Jon's DNA that the unique combination of human and Kryptonian genetics in his blood might mean that he could surpass even his own father when it comes to power once he's fully grown. All of this is to say that Jon Kent is, in my opinion, the most powerful son of the Justice League.
Number 10. Van-El. Van-El is the imaginary son of Superman that he is made to believe he had in the Superman Annual from 1985, Annual number 11, from the original Superman series. Superman ends up being put in a trance by a plant that starts to kind of attack him as part of a villainous plot. While he's in this trance, he sees what life would be like if he had remained on Krypton and grew up there. He ends up married and with a son named Van-El and a daughter. We don't see Van-El's abilities when it comes to powers, but he is a Kryptonian with both his mom and his dad being from that planet, which means that on Earth, he would probably be at least at Superman levels. Unfortunately, he is just a dream, and Superman heartbreakingly realizes that this world is false and he must wake up. It's actually a pretty sad issue, to be real. The story is like tragic. Number 9. Sir-El. Sir-El isn't a real child of Superman, although at first we actually thought she was one. Sir-El appeared to be the daughter of Lois Lane and Supes from a distant future. She even looked a lot like both of her parents and demonstrated similar powers, but in the end we learned that she was simply created as part of a plot to deliver the Yes virus, which would help Brainiac take over the world. She was created by combining Kryptonian DNA with a human, grafting the DNA sort of over top of her human self. Originally, she was a human known as Mia, and when she learned of her true origin, she destroyed herself in order to save the world. Sirel was also implanted with all the memories of her parents and being raised by them, so to her, her life as their daughter had felt very real, despite the fact that we learned she was really a fake. Fake daughters, I feel like, should still count, especially if they have memories of being raised. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you are loving my super comfy sweater, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. And if you don't like my comfy sweater, don't tell me, because I don't want to know. It's really comfy, okay guys? I got it for $5 at Value Village, don't judge me. Number 8. Superwoman. Superwoman is Kara Kent, the daughter of Superman and Lois Lane from the alternate reality of Earth 3839. This is the reality we explore in John Byrne's series Superman and Batman Generations. Here, Kara is seen as having the same level of power as Superman, at least initially. Eventually we learn though that Kara really only possesses half the strength of her dad's powers. Oh dear. This means that although she has worked alongside her dad as his sidekick under the name Supergirl for years, she is no match when her evil brother shows up to destroy her and her wedding. Kara was becoming a hero all her own, taking up the mantle of Superwoman and joining forces with her partner in crime fighting and her partner in romance, Bruce Wayne Jr., Batman's son. The two were married, but Kara's brother, manipulated by Lex Luthor to believe that both his father and Kara had actually taken away the powers that he should have been born with, shows up to the wedding and kills Kara shortly thereafter. Number 7. Supergirl. This is the imaginary daughter of Superman, but she still likely exists in some alternate reality, because technically every imagining is like an alternate reality, if that makes sense. So she exists probably somewhere out in the multiverse other than just Superman's dream, and so I'm gonna count her. Also, the dream featuring her in retrospect to the rest of the universe is like really tragic, so I feel like for that reason alone, we should just talk about it, because it's a pretty cool moment in Injustice, because tragic things are cool when they are safely contained in fictional worlds and can make you feel emotions without actually having to deal with the consequences of the tragedies that the emotions come from. Supergirl is Lara Lane Kent, the daughter Lois and Clark would have had in the event that Joker and Harley hadn't made Superman believe Lois was Doomsday and made him kill her. In this very different world, Superman and his daughter, Supergirl, are both still heroes. Her powers are very similar to her father's, and while she isn't quite as experienced as he is, she is still on a similar level when it comes to what she's capable of. Number 6. Carol and Jane Kent. Carol and Jane Kent are the daughters of Superman and Lois from the comic series Superman Secret Identity. We learn of their powers in the final issue, issue number 4, which acts as the conclusion to our tale as Clark moves into his twilight years and his kids mostly take over. Initially, he and Lois weren't sure if they had any powers at all, but many years later they find out that their kids' powers did manifest. It happened to Carol and Jane, their twin daughters, in their teenage years. As adults, they are initially a little less experienced than Clark, but eventually go on to replace him as he leaves more and more of the heroics up to them. By the end of the series, I'd say power level wise they are about at the same place as their dad, or perhaps even a little bit stronger than he was in his prime. Also, Superman Secret Identity is just a really well written story, so if you haven't checked out this miniseries, I highly recommend you go and give it a gander. Also, I can't believe it's from the early 2000s. Like, to me, it feels much more like modern day, like now, not like early 2000s. I mean that as a compliment. Number 5. Supergirl. Seriously, get ready for a list full of Supergirls, cause unsurprisingly, a lot of Superman's kids take up that mantle. This Supergirl is Lara Kent from Frank Miller's Dark Knight Alternate Earth, aka Earth 31. Here, Lara is the daughter of Superman and Wonder Woman. She stands out due to her very blue hair. Being a hybrid baby, she ends up inheriting both her parents' powers, making her super powerful and an immensely skilled fighter, having been trained by her mother in the way of the Amazons. One thing that makes her unique as well in comparison to some of the other super kids out there is that she believes her powers make her better than non-powered people, and she actually strives to one day rule over the non-powered people of Earth. A little bit villainous there, Lara. I mean, she's not gonna do it because she's like, I know my dad's like, these people, we gotta protect them. but she's definitely thinking about it. Number 4. Superman. Jonathan Kent is the natural-born son of Lois Lane and Clark Kent, aka Kal-El, Superman, from the main continuity. He was born during the events that caused a reset of the universe when the New 52 basically came about. He and his family were relocated to the New 52 Prime Earth, even though they were originally from New Earth, meaning that for a while we had 2 Supermans on planet Earth, although one was operating in secret, that one being John's dad. John would become good friends with another super son, Damian Wayne, Batman's semi-natural born son. Well, not really. His whole existence is also an interesting story, but enough of that. He's definitely Batman's biological son at least, so we can count that. Damian and John initially didn't get along but would find common ground and then become the best of friends. Of course, then John went to space and grew up rapidly, and currently in the comics, he has also taken up the mantle of Superman after his father, now that he's back on Earth. John's powers are at a very similar scope and level, but as a human Kryptonian hybrid, he apparently does have the potential to become even more powerful than Clark. Hybrid babies are the best babies in terms of superpowers. Number 3. The Golden Child. This version of John Kent comes to us from the alternate Earth of Earth 31. Yep, we're going back to the Dark Knight universe of Frank Miller. In one of his latest Dark Knight universe stories, it was revealed that baby John, who is now a young child here, also born of Superman and Wonder Woman, is actually something completely new when it comes to his power levels. Also, he doesn't have blue hair. No blue hair for John. His sister Lara even suggests that while she agrees with her father about teaching John, that they should soon be prepared to actually learn from him because he's that powerful. At the end of Dark Knight Returns: The Golden Child, we see the true extent of John's powers when he takes on Darkseid, calling him basically an old fart the entire time, as he defeats him pretty easily. Darkseid attempts to use his Omega beams only to have young John swallow that power, absorbing it, and then firing it back with his neutron vision powers. Totally unique powers. John is also able to protect his sister Lara in the fight, making her intangible somehow before both her and he fade away, seemingly transforming both of them into some type of energy? I think that's what happened. That's kind of a weird comic, but yes, it did happen. Number 2. HYPERMAN. HYPERMAN is the son of Superman and Wonder Woman who comes from the reality belonging to the Kingdom Come story and follow-up story, The Kingdom. In that story, little baby John Kent is kidnapped by Gog. He ends up being rescued by 2 different versions of his parents and his godfather Batman, but ends up with himself in the end, his future self. The hero, HYPERMAN, who also rules and guards over all of Hyper Time. HYPERMAN raises the child himself, so raises himself. Continuing the circle and pretty much guaranteeing that John Kent will grow up to become HYPERMAN, a time-traveling, dimension-hopping hero, because I assume that's how HYPERMAN was raised, by himself. And then when that one becomes older, he'll have to raise another one. I feel like this is a time loop and it will never end. Number 1. Supergirl. This version of Supergirl is Ariella Kent, the daughter of Linda Danvers' Supergirl and Superman of Earth 1. Yeah, it might sound weird to think that Supergirl and Superman got it on and ended up having a kid together, but remember, this is Linda Danvers' Supergirl. No relation to Supes, and it's also a Superman from another alternate reality because it's Earth 1 Superman, who is therefore even further removed to any kind of relation or affiliation with Linda. Ariella Kent ended up kind of being time or reality displaced due to continuities needing to be altered and set right, but she is still probably out there somewhere in the cosmos, somewhere in the multiverse, although we haven't seen her in the comics for a long time. Ariella was known for her massive power levels, which as a child she had a hard time actually fully comprehending, meaning that wherever she went she generally caused a lot of destruction. Accidentally. This is what happens when you let a super powerful child fly around space and travel through time without any parental supervision. Ariella was also a hybrid baby, being born part Matrix, aka lab-made semi-alien goo, that's basically what the Matrix is, and part Kryptonian. There's gonna be people that are gonna be like, that's not what the Matrix is. I'm like, no, DC Matrix. Look it up. It was a weird thing. But it happened.
And at 10, Barry Allen. Okay, I know you're probably confused with this one. Like, how is Barry Allen a child of himself? One of the Flashes and the original Silver Age Flash. Well, in the Crisis on Infinite Earths comic crossover event, Barry ends up running so fast that he ruptures the time barrier. This kills him, but also it converts his physical being into lightning. And since he was running so fast, he also travels through time, because you know, comics. In fact, he travels back to the day he got his powers. Perhaps because he was thinking about how that one day led led to all of this. However, when his physical form, now lightning, travels through time, he actually becomes the lightning bolt that struck himself. So Barry Allen gave Barry Allen his powers. So in a way, of Flashes creating other Flashes, Barry Allen is the child of Barry Allen. Yeah, you heard me right. It was also later strongly implied that Barry's soul resides inside the Speed Force, the source of power for all speedsters. So technically, if you want to look at it like that as well, every speedster who uses the Speed Force is also a child of Barry. And at 9, Velocity. Velocity is a clone of Jay Garrick created by Brain and Monsieur Mala and sold to Ratu Benin, dictator of Mali. Velocity is unleashed upon the outsiders when they're discovered by Benin, and the speedster comes close to defeating the team while Metamorpho attacks him with acid and manages to overpower him. He's later taken by Green Lantern, who states that the outsiders cannot be trusted. He also has all the powers of the Flash, except with one flaw, that he cannot survive outside of his suit for long. And I mean, it's certainly a badass suit, because like, look at that thing. If I wore that thing, I'd never want to take it off. Add the fact that I can't take it off, I would die, and then there's no way that you're getting that thing off me. And Velocity, like Jay Garrick, doesn't need access to the Speed Force to run at superhuman speeds, which is certainly beneficial if, say, the Speed Force were to die because the Spectre had to unlock its power during Crisis and it threatened, you know, to end life on all planets and literally every other Earth was destroyed and you were stranded at the vanishing point, you know. And at 8, Jenny Onatz. Jenny Onatz was the granddaughter of Barry Allen and a speedster like him. She was a member of the Legion of Superheroes under the name XS. Despite her ancestry though, Jenny did not at first display any signs of super speed. However, the Dominators, knowing her family heritage, captured her, and at the sight of seeing her father tortured, her latent super speed powers did activate. She managed to escape with her father before stray fire from the Dominators caused their base to explode, and during the Legion's first trip to the 20th century, XS was separated from them. She ended up meeting her cousin Impulse and became good friends with him. She ended up revealing how she was participating in an archaeological dig in the future, and XS fought side by side with Impulse and other speedsters during the events of Dead Heat. Afterwards, the 27th century Flash fixed her grandfather's cosmic treadmill, enabling her to go home. Unfortunately, she overshot, encountering 2 further incarnations of the Legion before getting back to her time. Impulse, though, left her a goodbye note in the building that she was participating in excavating, so that's sweet. And at 7, Malcolm Thawne. Malcolm Thawne is the lost twin brother of Barry Allen. He is Cobalt Blue, one of a number of evil counterparts of the Flash that wields the blue flame. On the stormy night of May 13th, 2 pregnant women came to the office of Fallville, Iowa's Dr. Gilmore. However, the doctor had been drinking that night and he had sent his nurse home. The child of one of the women, Charlie and Thawne, had been strangled by its own umbilical cord, and Gilmore was too intoxicated to save the baby. However, luckily for Gilmore, lightning caused a blackout in the hospital. Gilmore quickly enters the room where another woman, Nora Allen, gave birth, and Gilmore, to cover up the death of Charlene's baby, in the darkness quickly removes the first baby and then closes the baby's mouth so that it doesn't cry, and then he gives that twin to the Thawne family, telling the Allen family that one of their children didn't make it. Yeah, the twin that remained with the Allens was called Barry and grew up to be the Flash, and the other twin, however, was raised by the Thawnes and was named Malcolm. This is also the distant, like, great times 20 grandfather of Eobard Thawne. Yeah, the Reverse Flash. So Eobard and Barry actually share the same blood, which is freaking nuts. Damn, I did not know that, although I probably should have. And at 6, Jay West. Jay West and his twin sister Iris were born to the 3rd Flash, Wally West, and his wife Linda Park. Although the twins were initially miscarried as the result of an attack by Zoom, Linda's pregnancy was miraculously restored during a later battle, somehow. When Wally went into the Speed Force during a battle with Superboy Prime, he brought Linda and the infant twins with him, and spent some time in an Earth-like world inhabited by an alternate version of Jay Garrick, and they traveled to another planet occupied by technologically advanced aliens who had dealings with a Flash in the past. Yep, this is actually true. When they were first born, Jay and his sister exhibited no signs of having inherited their father's powers. However, after turning 3 months old, their metabolisms sped up and they began to age rapidly and exhibited powers. Their alien hosts, I mean, like, not like they were hosted, like the aliens that were living with the Wests, I guess I should say, taught Linda the basics of operating machinery that would stabilize the twins' powers, and I guess kind of halt their accelerated aging. Jay once overheard his father explain this to a Justice League teammate though, and he mentioned the possibility that the twins could age so much that they died. Deeply frightened by this, he kept this information to himself, but later on did reveal it to his sister, who she revealed that she already kind of guessed that. I mean, like, it's kind of obvious. Halfway through into number 5, Nora West Allen. In a previous timeline, Nora went back to the past to finally meet her father and became part of Team Flash, working alongside her parents and her friends. However, unbeknownst to the team at the time, Nora was working with THAWNE, who was imprisoned in 2049, on a secret agenda to destroy Cicada's dagger, and so that he would be saved from execution, whereas Nora was trying to save Barry from vanishing in a future crisis. After Team Flash defeated Cicada by administering the metahuman cure to her younger self and destroying her uncle's dagger, Nora was then erased from existence once a new timeline started to set in. However, in the current post-crisis timeline created by Oliver Queen and the Paragons, Nora is a vigilante operating in 2049 who fights metahuman criminals such as Godspeed alongside her younger brother BART. During one fight with Godspeed though, he went to the Flash Museum and used the cosmic treadmill to travel back in time. Fearing that they would never be able to find him if he got away, Nora and BART broke their family's #1 rule and decided to follow him, eventually ending up in the present. Well, I guess our present, not their present. Saying present is kind of a broad term. However, Nora, I guess this post-crisis Nora, grew up with stories of her other timeline self. Of like, her parents were telling her about her other version, which is pretty messed up if you ask me. Like your parents going on and on about another version of literally you that you desperately have to try to live up to. Yeah, that's messed up. This isn't in the Arrowverse, by the way. And 4, Inertia. The bitter feud between the Allen family and the THAWNE family would span generations, although despite them actually kind of sharing blood. Even in the 30th century, President THAWNE sought to recruit Bart Allen in his revenge campaign against the Allens, since Bart was half THAWNE himself. When that failed, THAWNE mixed Bart's DNA with THAWNE genetic material to create a speedster clone who he named THAWNE. Or I guess Thaddeus THAWNE. Either way. Come on, really? Alliteration. Whereas Bart grew up in a hyper-accelerated world, Thaddeus' childhood was the exact opposite of this. Cause you know, reverse Flash. His development was super slow, which led to the young speedster to become more calculating and methodical. You know, the exact traits a sociopath has. Thaddeus was also taught to hate the Allen family, and Impulse in particular. In addition to this modification, Thaddeus' growth and development was slowed down. This is in contrast to Bart's accelerated development. However, after killing Bart, Wally West had other plans for him. Upon hearing of Bart's death, an enraged Flash, this Flash being Wally West, hunted Inertia down. Though he thought of killing him, Flash decided instead to do something worse. He used his abilities to slow Inertia's movements down to the point where he was totally immobile, essentially a living statue, and then he placed Inertia on display in the Flash Museum, facing statues of Bart Allen as Impulse and Kid Flash. Though he could still think, see, and hear in normal time, Inertia was doomed to spend eternity in a state of near total paralysis, staring at images of Bart, plus being gawked at by everyone coming to the Flash Museum. Oh, that's so brutal. Getting close to the end, and in number 3, Bart Allen. Bart Allen was the product of the union between two families that had been bitter rivals for centuries. His father, Don Allen, was the son of Barry Allen, the second Flash, and his mother was Maloney THAWNE, daughter of the Earth government president and descendant of Flash villains Cobalt Blue and Professor Zoom. Bart was born with his grandfather's speed, and he had an incredibly high metabolism that also caused him to age at hyperspeed. When he was chronologically 2 years old, physically, he looked like he was 12. After Wally helped him solve his aging problem, Bart helped Wally defeat Cobra. Bart then moved to Manchester, Alabama with Max Mercury. Max had also used his connections to supply Bart with a birth certificate, stuff like that, passport, you know the deal. And Bart began the 9th grade at Manchester Junior High, when he was probably like supposed to be like 4. He managed to make quite a few friends, chief among them being Carol Buckland. Max continued to train him in the art of super speed, having him run off courses while dodging axes and knives and solving jigsaw puzzles in midair, you know, stuff like that, I guess. Ultimately enlisting his aid to battle his old foe Savitar. During this time, Bart served a brief stint in the New Titans before becoming one of the founding members of Young Justice, before getting killed. But ultimately, in at number 2, the Tornado Twins. The Tornado Twins, Don and Don Allen, are the children of Iris West and Barry Allen. In one of the possible futures, instead of being heroes though, they turned into supervillains and terrorized the future Central City. According to Professor Zoom, one of the reasons for this change was because of Barry's absence in their lives, which made them misguided and hated their own father, which is weird because in the Flash show, Nora was like obsessed with her dad, but you know, whatever. Dawn, D-O-N, is the father of Bart Allen, and Dawn, D-A-W-N, is the mother of Jenny Ognatz. The duo though ended when Dawn was killed by a Dominator in the Flash number 769, nice, in June of 2021. These are pretty damn powerful characters, and they're at number 2 because you kinda have to count them together, so yeah, 2 people is definitely gonna be more powerful than 1. But this is actually, interestingly enough, supposed to be the twins that Barry had in the original Arrowverse timeline. However, seemingly after Flashpoint, it went from Dawn to Nora, and then it went from Nora to Nora and Bart. This seems to be hinted at since during the 100th episode of The Flash that takes place in season 5, a 2015 THAWNE disguised as Harrison Wells assumes that Nora's name is Dawn before being corrected by Barry. And finally, in at number 1, the Forces. Okay, this is certainly going off book here, but the most recent season of The Flash introduced 3 additional forces into the Arrowverse. While recreating the Speed Force with the power of love and positive thinking, Barry and Iris ended up creating 3 new forces along with it. For the first half of the season, these are kind of the big bads of the show. However, for some reason, since they were created along with the new Speed Force, they refer to these forces, including the Speed Force itself, which materializes as Nora Allen, Barry's mother, as their kids. Which is weird enough given that technically Barry has now given birth to his mother in a sense, but by that definition, the forces are also literally the most powerful children of the Flash. They're literal forces of nature. They refer to themselves as a family. The Sage Force calls the Strength Force his sister, and Barry and Iris mom and dad. And technically, without Barry and Iris, they wouldn't have been born. However, since I'm referring to the Arrowverse versions of these forces, plenty of diehard comic fans are going to be mad at me, but that's fine. Barry literally gave birth to the Speed Force, and that's enough for me to claim that they're his most powerful children. Deal with it.
Number 10, Helena Wayne, Earth 2. Before there was Helena Wayne of Earth 2, there was Helena Wayne of Earth 2. Are you confused yet? Are you watching this with subtitles? This version of Helena Wayne was the first child of Catwoman and Batman from Earth 2. The original Earth 2, cause yeah, there's 2 Earth 2s. Look, I don't know what to tell you, it's DC, it's confusing. The original Earth 2 that this Helena Wayne is from was one of the worlds destroyed during Crisis on Infinite Earths. We later would see Earth 2 brought back, but of course slightly different, and technically in a different continuity. But on this Earth 2 that we're talking about, Helena's mother died in a tragic accident when she was blackmailed into returning to a life of crime. This is in part what actually inspired Helena Wayne to fight crime herself, taking up the name Huntress and avenging her mother's death. She tracked down the man responsible and learned that the photo that he had used to blackmail her mother was actually a fake. It showed her mother killing a cop, but in truth, Catwoman had never done such a thing during her time as Catwoman. Huntress in this version of Earth 2 is known for being a skilled fighter, martial artist, and archer. She typically fights with batarangs or a crossbow. Number 9, Helena Wayne, Earth 2. This alternate version of Helena hails from the same reality as Power Girl, who is also her best friend. Helena on Earth 2 is the daughter of Catwoman and Batman. And to be clear, this is the Earth 2 that came after the previous Earth 2 that we just talked about. I hope everyone's following this. I hope you're following this. I wish I had drawn like a diagram for everyone. There's this Earth 2 and there's this Earth 2. Helena here initially fought alongside her father as his Robin. However, she ended up leaving her world in what she thought was the pursuit of Darkseid after her father was killed during a Parademon's attack. Helena had tried to save her dad but was unable to as the tower that he was in exploded, killing him. This version of Helena would spend a lot more time on Prime Earth with Power Girl, who took the name Karen Starr. The two would split up for a while but inevitably rejoin forces and find a way back to their Earth, their home. Back on Earth 2, Helena would take up her father's mantle, eventually becoming the new Batman. And if you're wondering, wait, no, do you mean Batwoman? Did you say that wrong? No, I mean Batman. That is the name that she takes. Batman, just like her dad. Being trained by Batman, Helena has a bunch of skills as his and Catwoman's daughter. She's especially well known for her skills with a crossbow, as an investigator, her stealth, and her fighting prowess. Before becoming Batman while living on Prime Earth, Helena went by the hero name Huntress. All the Helena Waynes, all the Huntresses, all the Bat babies. Bat baby. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to learn more about Batman's kids, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. He's got a lot of cool kids, and I'd like to talk more about them. Number 8. Terry McGinnis. Terry is basically Batman in the future. He not only has Batman's genes, but was trained by the old man himself, and he also has future tech to aid him in his missions as well. You might not think of Terry McGinnis as Batman's son, considering, well, he has 2 other parents who raised him and brought him into the world. But Terry is also genetically related to Batman. Amanda Waller helped to create Terry into the man that he is today. She manipulated his father's DNA to make sure that when Terry was conceived, his genes would actually match Batman's, aka Bruce Wayne's. This all happened as part of Project Batman Beyond, which was all about building a new Batman to replace the former. Waller also almost had his parents assassinated to help give Terry motivation to become a hero, but Andrea Beaumont's Phantasm, who she hired to do that job, ended up refusing to go through with it. But don't worry, he still becomes Batman anyways. Otherwise, he wouldn't have any skills for me to talk about, I guess. Could you imagine if I just had like most powerful children of Batman and they were all like accountants or something? And I was like, this is a better accountant than the other one. Number 7. Tim Drake. Tim Drake is known for being probably one of the smartest children of Batman around. Although Tim had parents in the original continuity of New Earth, he was adopted by Bruce Wayne. So at least then and there he was considered an adoptive son. In the current continuity, his backstory hasn't become quite as tragic as the former, and I believe his parents are still alive in that reality. Although I think he's still considered Batman's adopted son there too. So he has parents, but he's also adopted? I don't know. While Tim might not be the best marksman or fighter of the bunch of Bat kids, he is definitely the most intelligent and best detective when it comes to living up to Batman's legacy. Does this make him the most powerful? I don't know, it can depend on the mission that he's got, I guess. I would argue that smarts is actually one of the most powerful things or skills you can possess when it comes to heroics, but many others often measure power in how hard you can hit. So even though I kinda wanna put Tim Drake higher on this list, I feel like there's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna be like, but he's not the biggest muscles. Which is fine if that's how you measure power, but how do you measure power? I mean, there's lots of ways to measure it. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. Number 6. Helena Wayne, Last Rites Batman/Catwoman. I promise this is the last Helena on this list, although honestly I really do love a lot of what they do with all the Helena Waynes. I love Helena Wayne as a character, and I wish that she was part of the main continuity. Let Batman and Catwoman be together and let them give us a Helena Wayne. This is probably my favorite version of Helena thus far. She is the one that appears as the daughter of Catwoman and Batman in Last Rites and Tom King's Batman/Catwoman series. This version of Helena is really just, I think, a little bit of an improvement of the redo that we saw with her character from New 52's Earth 2. She also has the investigative skills of her mother and father and is a skilled fighter and acrobat. Helena Wayne here goes on to become Batwoman in honor of both of her parents. Also, if you're wondering how Kate Kane feels about that, because, you know, that's kind of her mantle, I'm not sure what she's up to in this reality, or if she exists. If you know more about Kate Kane here, please share with me in the comments. I'd love to learn more. I tried to do some research on that and I was like, I can't find anything, so I'm assuming Kate Kane is like, I feel nothing because I'm not here. Bye. Number 5. Damian Wayne. Probably one of the most powerful semi-natural born kids around, and definitely one of the most dangerous, is Damian Wayne. Damian is the son of Batman and sometimes villain, sometimes ally, Talia al Ghul. Depending on which story you were going with, his conception was pretty controversial, as it has been implied and interpreted mainly that Talia forced herself on Bruce in order to get pregnant with Damian. Damian also was only a semi-naturally born kid because he did not gestate in a womb, but instead was kind of like grown in a tube. He was raised initially by his mother, who then dropped him on Bruce's doorstep when he was around, I think, 8 or 10. Initially, he and his father didn't get along too great, partly because of Damian's spoiled attitude, and partly because, despite still being a kid, he was already a murderous, deadly assassin that had been raised mainly by the League of Assassins. So, you know, that's gonna be a problem. Especially as, you know, Batman has a moral code and Damian initially didn't really have much of a moral code. He was like, what's wrong? I can just decapitate people, that's fine. Why is it a big deal? They're bad guys. Number 4. Jason Todd. Everyone's favorite son of the Bat has got to be Jason Todd, or at least a lot of people's favorite son of the Bat. If that's not you, that's okay, but I know there's a lot of Jason Todd fans out there, so like, show yourselves. I see you. Well, Jason Todd has come a long way since he was first introduced in the comics, back when we knew him by the nickname Jason J. Todd, when he originally originally appeared in issue 357 of Batman, his backstory was actually very similar to former Robin Dick Grayson. Of course, his backstory would be redone and it wouldn't be this anymore, but initially, in the New Earth continuity, Jason Todd was introduced as an orphan whose parents were both originally acrobats who had died. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Like Dick Grayson before him, Jason was taken in by Bruce Wayne and trained to become his new Robin. Bruce even seemingly adopts Jason in this version of the story, making him one of the Batman's adopted kids. And I think even in Prime Earth continuity we consider him an adopted kid, although I don't know if he's formally been adopted. Jason Todd now, however, has more of a challenging relationship with Bruce Wayne in the current Prime Earth continuity due to the fact that he has no problem killing villains when needed and often uses lethal force and firearms against them when he fights. Jason Todd is known for being one of the most gifted and brutal fighters in the DC universe. But Jason's not just a bruiser, he's also got a sharp mind as well, and perhaps even a bit of a magical power set since being revived in the Lazarus pits. There was also, I think for a time, we considered him to be immortal because of that, but I don't think that's a thing anymore. For those that want to be like, he's immortal! I don't know if that's true anymore, but it was a thing at one point that was implied. Number 3. Nightwing. While Dick Grayson is not born of Batman, he spent a good amount of time being raised by him and is actually an officially adopted child of Bruce Wayne's. After years of Dick being like an adopted son to Bruce, Bruce decided to actually fill out the paperwork and finally make it official. So yeah, there's actually paperwork for this one, friends. Nightwing is one of the most powerful Robins, Bat family members, and sons of Batman around. He is a great all-around kind of powerful. Instead of dominating in one specific field when it comes to Batman's skill set, Nightwing does a great job of excelling sort of in all aspects equally. While some might think that this makes him weaker overall because he's not like a super big powerhouse in one area, I'd argue it makes him stronger overall as a character, as it means he has less weak spots in comparison to some of the other heroes, anti-heroes, and even villains in the multiverse who have trained under Batman. Nightwing is a great detective, fighter, acrobat, and he has a great heart, which is part of the reason he's such an amazing hero. Number 2. Cull. Cull is the daughter of Wonder Woman and Batman from the Dark Multiverse. We don't as of yet know what Dark Earth Cull hailed from, only that she was raised and trained by both her parents before she turned to the dark side, joining the Batman Who Laughs, who in turn served Perpetua. During the Dark Knight's death metal event, Cull ended up in a fight against Wonder Woman, who was amazed by her strength and her skills as a fighter. To read more about Cull and her badass self, you can check out Dark Knight's death metal Trinity Crisis, and I know that the Dark Multiverse is kinda gone, but I do hope we get to learn more about Cull and her backstory. I hope that's like not the only time we get to see her. She just seems like such an interesting character to me, and also I miss the Dark Multiverse. I just want more Dark Multiverse. Please, please. She ranks high on this list because due to her heritage, she possesses an Amazonian physiology like her mother. This means she is not likely someone that you would want to come up against in a fight. And she likely also possesses her father's enhanced intellect and sense of resourcefulness, making her an even more dangerous enemy to face. Also, it's really rare, I think, that Batman and Wonder Woman get together in realities and actually have kids. I feel like that's not usually a thing that happens, so she's a rare one. Number 1. Jarro. Jarro is probably the strongest child of Batman to have ever existed, at least obviously in my mind. When it comes to his potential for power, he could technically conquer the entire Earth if he wanted to. Fortunately, he doesn't want to. Jarro mainly wants to be a good son and become the best Robin ever in his father's eyes. He was grown by Batman from a tissue sample he'd had of Starro the Conqueror. Batman grew and raised Jarro himself, teaching him how to be a good alien starfish and a good hero. Jarro has teamed up with his dad before to help the Justice League, and there's almost nothing that he wouldn't do for Bruce. Due to his unique alien physiology, Jarro has a slew of powers available to him, the main one being telepathy and mind control. He's also heckin' smart, possessing genius level intellect. Plus, he's the cutest. Like, I'm just saying, if we're doing a top 10 cutest children of Batman list, or even the Justice League, cutest children of the Justice League, I think that Jarro would also end up at the top. Like, he's pretty cute. Just putting it out there.